Hello everyone, and welcome back to another weather update. And tonight we're going to be looking at our severe weather risk across parts of the mid-Atlantic states and northeast states. And then we'll look at our severe weather risk across the central U.S. And we'll also be looking at tomorrow's severe weather risk. And so I'm looking at the 01Z update for July 18th. We do have a slight risk into parts of the northeast states and then into a little bit into the mid-Atlantic states, but marginal risk around that. And then looking out to our west, we have a marginal risk here in parts of the central U.S. And this is the 01Z update, and this will update again in a little over an hour from when I'm recording this. So looking here at our tornado risk, we don't have any tornado risk with this, which is a good thing. Looking at our wind risk, we do have a 15% risk here into parts of the northeast, and surrounding that is a large 5% wind risk with that. And then going to the west, we do have a 5% wind risk here into parts of the central U.S. And looking at our hail risk, we don't have a hail risk into the mid-Atlantic or northeast, but we do have a 5% here into parts of the central U.S. So looking mainly at the mid-Atlantic for right now, you do have some storms that are lingering over parts of South Carolina, North Carolina, even into Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Virginia there, and then even into really parts of New Jersey, and then up here into parts of the northeast like Massachusetts and Connecticut, as well as Rhode Island. And then going forward with this over the next couple of hours, you do have some showers moving out of the northeast states, and then most of the storms really move offshore into the Atlantic, and then you still do have some storms that linger maybe into the night into parts of Kentucky, and then into Virginia and West Virginia there. And really the storm threat for tonight is just about over for parts of the mid-Atlantic and northeast. Now looking out farther to our west into parts of the central U.S., kind of same deal here. Most of our storms today, or tonight I should say, have weakened quite a bit. And I mean, you may have a couple storms out there showing up on the 03 ZHRRR. I did forget to mention that when I was looking at the mid-Atlantic and northeast, I was using the 03 ZHRRR for that. But going back here to the central U.S., we do have just some showers and maybe some storms moving out through parts of even Kansas and Colorado into maybe New Mexico as well. And those will weaken, and you should have very little showers or thunderstorms as you get later into the night and early tomorrow morning on Thursday. Now looking at our 1730Z Day 2 outlook from Wednesday, and this is for Thursday's severe weather threat on July the 18th. We do have a marginal risk into parts of the Carolinas and as well as Virginia there. And then looking out to the central U.S., we do have a marginal risk here into southwestern South Dakota, eastern Wyoming here, and then western Nebraska, and then into parts of eastern Colorado, northwestern Kansas, northeastern New Mexico, and extreme northwestern, the extreme northwestern panhandle of Texas, and the extreme western panhandle of Oklahoma there. Then looking at our tornado risk, we do not have a tornado risk at this time. That is a good thing. Looking at our wind risk here, headed back east into Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, we do have a 5% wind risk here with our severe weather threat. Looking to our west, we do have a 5% here into the parts of the central U.S. Then looking at our hail risk, we do not have one into the Carolinas or Virginia, but looking into the central U.S., we do have a 5% hail risk with this, and this is into parts of southwestern South Dakota, eastern Wyoming, western Nebraska, eastern Colorado, northwestern Kansas, and then into, again, the extreme northwestern panhandle of Texas and the far western panhandle of Oklahoma into northeastern New Mexico. And again, also this will update in a little over an hour, so check back with the Storm Prediction Center to see what the newest update is if you live in any of these severe weather areas. Now looking at the central U.S. for Thursday's severe weather threat, and then we will move up. We'll move our view up to the north central U.S. so we can see a little better. So looking at the 0ZHRRR, and for right now we'll look at the 3 kilometer NAM in just a second. But looking here, you do have your showers from tonight, and then you will have some storms that kind of linger into tomorrow, and these some more storms could get going with the storms that may get left over from tonight, and then really by the late morning hours to the early afternoon hours, you do have storms that begin to form, and just a couple there into parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And then you do have a lot better development there for storms, especially into the panhandle of Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, even Wyoming there as well. And then as you go farther into the day, into the evening, you do have widespread coverage of storms into really spots of northeastern New Mexico, Colorado, a few in Nebraska, and then these will persist throughout much of the day, and they will kind of move to the south and into parts of New Mexico and even Texas there. And then you may even get some redevelopment and some more storms that form Friday, but we'll talk about that threat in just a second. But all these storms will eventually weaken really by very late tomorrow night across the central U.S. Now looking farther north in our north central U.S. sector here, let's go to the late morning hours and early afternoon hours here. So going really into the evening hours here, you don't have many storms here, just a couple showing up on the 0ZHRRR into parts of South Dakota, and then not a lot of coverage here into the north central U.S. But then as you go into really parts of Wyoming, you do have some showers and storms there, and then even some showers into parts of Montana. And again, you don't have much as widespread coverage as you did to the south, but you do have those storms that begin to form on Friday. And again, we'll talk about that threat in just a second. And then looking at the 3 kilometer NAM, a pretty similar look on that, and just some storms even going into parts of North Dakota, Wyoming, Nebraska there, and then even into parts of Montana as the HRRR was showing. And then just going down to our central U.S. sector here, we'll look at the 3 kilometer NAM on that, and it shows a pretty similar look. Those storms linger throughout the night, and then new ones get going into the evening hours and afternoon hours tomorrow, and pretty much the same idea. Those will gradually weaken throughout the day and will stay strong throughout quite a bit of the evening hours. But as you can see there, those go to the south, but that is looking at the 3 kilometer NAM. Now looking at the RAP model, I like looking at this model just for our instability and stuff. And even if I do just click on a sounding, to me this is one of the best models, not one of the best, but one of the better models to look at for kind of stuff like this, like instability, because sometimes the HRRR and the NAM can overdo it just a little bit. But looking here on the RAP, the 03 RAP model here, you do have quite a bit of instability moving really tomorrow evening and afternoon into parts of the central U.S., especially into parts of western Kansas, eastern Colorado, and western Nebraska. Well over 2,500 joules per kilogram of mixed layer CAPE here, and then that CAPE, pretty much that instability is at its highest into parts of northeastern Colorado late tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. There we'll click a sounding right here into western Nebraska, and then you do have that CAPE there, and you don't have a lot of low level shear, but your shear throughout the mid and upper levels is definitely sufficient for that hail threats and just that hail growth for those storms. And then we'll look at our north central sector here, and let's see right here, we'll go into our afternoon and evening hours. So that instability, you don't have a lot of instability into South and North Dakota, but you do have some, and I'm sure this is sufficient for any storms that do get going here. But we'll click on that sounding again real quick. Yeah, that definitely has a not as good of a sounding as you did to the south of that, but you still do have some of that instability into Nebraska and Kansas, and then into Colorado, and then into the Dakotas a little bit there, and then really throughout much of the night that you're gonna have that instability, you're gonna have more unstable air, as you get farther into the night tomorrow, and then you'll have the storms on Friday, which we'll talk about in just a second. But you won't have much instability into the north central U.S. tomorrow on Thursday. Now looking at parts of the Carolinas and Virginia for tomorrow, as you go into tomorrow morning, late tomorrow morning here, you do have storms that are already beginning to form into parts of West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, parts of North Carolina, and then by the early to mid afternoon hours, you do have not widespread coverage, but you do have quite a few storms here showing up, especially in North Carolina, Virginia, and then going into the later evening hours tomorrow on Thursday, you have quite a few storms here into parts of central and eastern North Carolina. And those will kind of form into a line, more cluster-like storms as you go, as they head south, and those will really kind of march their way down to the south into parts of South Carolina, and then you will have those storms not really getting going into South Carolina until the evening hours there, and then when you do, they will again kind of form into a cluster and head to the south, pretty much southward, and most of them will move off really by early Friday morning. Now looking at the 3-kilometer NAM right here, kind of similar here. It does show those storms getting going around the same time, and it does show quite a bit more coverage of storms into northeast North Carolina and southeast Virginia, and then again those storms beginning to form into central North Carolina, and then into parts of South Carolina that begin to move to the south. And then really the NAM is quite aggressive with these storms into eastern North Carolina. If this does play out, this wind risk might get upgraded for tomorrow on Thursday, but definitely a strong line, more than a cluster compared to the HRRR there, and then that gets off of the South Carolina, North Carolina coast by very early on Friday. But we'll definitely have to watch this and see how the models continue to show this as we get into tomorrow morning as well. But definitely something to watch there. Now looking at the 03Z RAP model here for our instability tomorrow, you do have quite a bit of instability across the Carolinas, and then just a little bit into parts of Virginia. And that instability probably, it looks like it peaks into the late evening hours, maybe the early nighttime hours, but well over 2,500 joules per kilogram, or really over 2,000 joules per kilogram in most spots across the Carolinas, especially South Carolina, but some spots reaching over 2,500 joules per kilogram of mixed layer CAPE. And we'll do a sounding. Let's see. We'll go to about 2021Z. We'll do a sounding here into parts of eastern North Carolina. And then looking here, you do have plenty of CAPE and definitely rich moisture in the low levels, but you don't have much shear into really all the levels of the atmosphere there. And then we'll even go to South Carolina here. I didn't mean to go to that far, but we'll go right here into South Carolina. Kind of the same deal, definitely rich moisture in the low levels and quite a bit of instability, but not a lot of shear in most of the levels in the atmosphere. So that does limit your hail potential. You don't have a hail risk at this time, but I really don't expect. There may be one added tomorrow. I'm not sure though, but mainly just that wind risk will be the biggest problem across parts of the Carolinas and southeastern Virginia tomorrow on Thursday. Now looking at Friday's severe weather risk on July 19th, we do have a marginal risk here into parts of the north central U.S., and that is into parts of northwestern Kansas, central and western Nebraska, central and western South Dakota, extreme southeastern Montana, eastern Wyoming, and into northeastern Colorado there. And then this update came out at 17:30 on Wednesday, but this will be updated in a little less than 2.5 hours from now when I'm recording this. Now looking at the RAP model, we are going to look at the HRRR and the 3 kilometer NAM just pretty quickly, but just looking at this right here for Friday's severe weather threat into parts of the north central U.S. And this is pretty far out on the RAP model, so don't take it as its exact CAPE values. We're going to switch back to mixed layer CAPE there, but don't take this is exactly how much instability there will be, but you will have quite a bit of instability, especially into the Dakotas and Nebraska on Friday, and then especially into the evening hours there. Large amounts of instability, especially across South Dakota and Nebraska as well. And then looking at the HRRR really quickly, looking at the 0Z run, we're going to look at composite reflectivity just real quick, but do not take this as this is going to happen exactly how the HRRR shows it, because this is pretty far out for this model, so it won't exactly be as accurate as it could be, and it will change over the next several runs, especially into tomorrow. But it does show storms. What we saw earlier, though, it does show storms kind of getting going very early on Friday into parts of Nebraska and Kansas, and then into North Dakota and South Dakota early Friday morning. Very early Friday morning, there are storms that begin to form there. And then you kind of have these showers and storms moving through Nebraska and South Dakota, and then you really have your main storms forming into the evening and afternoon and evening hours on Friday the 19th. And so we'll just kind of keep watching this. It looks like there'll be kind of a scattered storm mode, but again, we're not going to take this as this is going to happen because it's pretty far out on the HRRR. And so as the closer we do get to it, that'll be when you'll see more accurate runs from the HRRR and the NAM and just short range models in general. Now looking at the 0Z GFS just for our moisture here. So you do have kind of a push of moisture to the north, and then those storms are gonna kind of be trying to catch up with that moisture, because you're gonna have dew points into the 50s and 40s, which is not favorable for that storm development. But across parts of the central North and South Dakota, points east, you're gonna have quite a bit of more richer moisture compared to the areas around that, but still dew points into the mid and upper 60s. That isn't very moist, but it is quite a bit more moist compared to the other areas outside of that. Those dew points begin to rise, and then by late Friday night, you do have dew points into the upper 60s across parts of the Dakotas there, and then into parts of Minnesota as well. So that's going to be it for tonight's update. I do appreciate all of y'all who watch my videos and just watch them all the way through. I really do appreciate that, and I do apologize for not having like a forecast video like I've been doing out in a while, because I haven't done one in probably a month. But I do want to start making more again and continue to kind of do these severe weather updates, and then especially as we get closer into hurricane season, where we have a more active time. But we don't have any areas of development shown up on the National Hurricane Center. I should have showed that earlier, but we don't have any right now, or I would have showed it if we did have any. So I do appreciate y'all watching, as I've said before, and anybody who watches to the end. I really do appreciate all of y'all, and I probably won't have a video up, a forecast video up like this one, for at least a couple of days. So just all y'all would want to be aware of that, because it will be probably at least a couple of days before I make another one. So I'm gonna make a little like mini video or something, maybe this weekend, but we'll have to see. And then but I do definitely want to try to make more videos, maybe kind of in this month for sure, but I may try to start making more frequent uploads next week. So we'll just have to see. But again, I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and that's going to be it for this video. But I do hope all of y'all having a great Wednesday night or a great Thursday morning whenever y'all are watching.